What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 36 of Preloaded. My name is Josh Finderup, and I'm joined, as always, once again by the other half of Preloaded, Jackson Vanover. How you doing this week, Jackson?
I'm doing great, Josh. Lots of exciting games right around the corner, and I'm about to go on vacation. That's why you guys are seeing this a day early. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Nice. Vacation is good. I have not gone on one of those in a very long time, so that's good to hear. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about this week. It's going to be a fun show. We have some PlayStation news that everybody is probably well aware of, and then some hardware sales news, which is super interesting. We don't usually go into that, but it's kind of an interesting time right now between PlayStation and Xbox. So we'll get into that, and we even got some. Wait for it. Last of Us Part 3 news, but don't hold your breath for that game or anything like that. But we are going to talk about The Last of Us Part 3. So if any of that sounds interesting, you want to stay tuned for all of that. But first, and we're going to have a deep dive discussion. I always forget this to go over our deep dive topic. We are going to talk about all of the games that have been delayed in the last, 6 months or so. So hopefully that's not too much of a downer, but it'll definitely be interesting to talk about all the games that have gotten pushed, and maybe that'll be it'll be a topic of games that we can all look forward to in the months and even years to come. So stay tuned for all of that. But first, now I can get into the housekeeping. You can catch Preloaded every Friday. We post the episode over on Jackson's YouTube channel. Of course, this week we're posting early. It's Thursday, so thanks for tuning in early. I hope this doesn't throw your schedule off too much. But normally we post on Friday over on Jackson's YouTube channel. If you prefer the audio version, you can catch that on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. And if you are listening on any of those platforms, we'd love for you to leave a review, leave a 5-star review or a written review if you're enjoying the show. You can also write into Preloaded at the email address preloadedpodcast@gmail.com. That's if you want to hear your question discussed on the show. We dig into our mailbag at the end of every show. So if there's something you want to hear us talk about, write to preloadedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will answer your questions. And with that, we are going to kick the show off, as we always do, with the segment, What the Hell Have You Been Playing?
So this week, Josh, I've been kind of all over the place. I dove back into AC Odyssey, and I know you're a big fan of that game, Josh.
Love Odyssey.
I love it too.
Awesome.
Yeah. I kind of blew my mind, man. I'm going to be honest. I think I bought into a lot of the negative perception around the game. And so I made a little video about my return to it after playing Valhalla. And yeah, man, it really scratches that itch where Valhalla didn't for me.
Nice. Yeah, for me, Odyssey was just, I went into it looking for that big role-playing game experience, not necessarily the old school Assassin's Creed experience.
Right.
So for me, it was, and I loved the ancient Greece setting, man. I'm fascinated by that. It feels almost like otherworldly to me, and really fascinated by it.
Right. And it's so authentic and it's gorgeous, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been enjoying that game. I dove back into Cyberpunk. That game is blowing me away again.
Wow.
I feel like I'm in this phase of going back to games and being like, wait a second, this is actually really awesome. So that game, from a stability standpoint, is much better than the last time I played it. So just a heads up for you guys listening, if you're interested in returning to it.
Very cool. Are you playing it again on your PlayStation 5?
No, so I'm actually playing it on PC.
PC, okay.
Yeah, so maybe that's why my experience is a bit different. In any case, a little more stable there. And then Fallout 76. I'm on a trend here. I've been enjoying that. They released a new update that allows you to have more flexibility with your loadout. You can just change your perks and stuff at any moment, which I found to be very useful because I haven't played the game in forever, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But just having a good time exploring that game with NPCs again, and nice. I'm finding it fun.
Yeah, well, you've been busy. That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, nice. I have not been playing a whole lot this week. I continued playing Sniper Elite 3. I'm still enjoying that game. It is a bit repetitive, although, this is, again, it's a sniping stealth game where you go into these levels that are kind of sandboxy. They are open, and you have to basically, pick a bunch of people off, whether you do that through sniping or through sneaking up on them with your knife, or even you can just go in guns blazing. But it's pretty basic. Like, I don't know if basic is the right word, but all the levels, they don't really introduce new gameplay elements as you progress through the game. So all the levels feel very samey, and there are 8 of them. So by the time you get to at the end of the game, it is a bit repetitive. But nonetheless, if you like stealth games and you see this on sale, like I picked it up for like $6, it's definitely worth it if you can find it for that price.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cheap.
Yeah. And then there's a 4th one too, so which apparently has like much bigger levels. But then the other probably more interesting thing for our listeners that I played this week was the Resident Evil 3 Castle demo that they released. Or not Resident Evil 3. I don't know where that came from. Resident Evil Village. So Capcom had their showcase a week or two ago. Then they released this really weird schedule where you can play the demo, but only at certain times and only once and only for 30 minutes. So I did play that, and I have to say, I'm really excited about this. Resident Evil 7, I love the series Resident Evil, but it's like hard for me to admit that I just didn't like Resident Evil 7 as much as I wanted to, and I think Resident Evil Village is potentially going to bring me back into the series. I love the castle setting. It's just like, it feels like that original mansion from the first game, but more ornate and more just like creepy and unusual. So I'm really excited for it. Looks gorgeous. And I recommend it. I think you can play the demo once again. I'm not sure what the date is, but if you haven't played it, there's one more chance to play it before the game comes out.
Yeah, so it's great to hear that you're enjoying it, Josh. Just for our listeners, I actually came across this morning. They extended the next demo. It's going to be a week long. It's not going to be one of those goofy 8-hour demos.
That's awesome.
I know. Like, I haven't been able to play either of the last 2 demos, which just bummed me out. So it's great to hear that you're enjoying it. And yeah, I fully anticipate that I'll play the demo next week, which is only 1 week before the game actually comes out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't really pick up any like spoiler vibes. I don't think that's there. But if you want to just get a taste of the game before it comes out, this is a great way to do it. And I do think it's only on PlayStation, which is kind of a bummer for, Xbox and PC gamers. But nonetheless, that is what we have been playing. We are now going to move on to the top stories of the week. And excuse me, the biggest story I think that, kind of just popped out of nowhere was that Sony released Insomniac released a new trailer for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. And they also announced a state of play. Man, sorry about that. The state of play is going to be on Thursday. So that's actually, unfortunately, we aren't covering that on this show. We'll probably cover it next week. But if you're watching before 2 p.m. on Thursday, that's when the state of play airs. And it's going to be mostly about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Yeah, this trailer looked amazing. What do you think, Jackson?
Yeah, it just blew me away. It was really cool to see the amazing response. Everyone was like, oh my God, this looks amazing. Just like you said, Josh. So I love seeing more about Rivet, the female Lombax, who was pretty much mysterious up to this point. But I also dove into the article that Sony put out on their PlayStation site, talking about very specific things, like a couple new weapons. I didn't list them here, but a couple new gadgets. And then in the gameplay, we saw like some races, which are like classic Ratchet & Clank little set pieces if you've played the older games. But I was also really happy to read that we're going to visit old planets, like alternate reality versions, which, I have mixed opinions, right, about rehashing content. But at the same time, these older games, it's been forever since we've seen them. So I think it's going to be nice, obviously, for people playing it for the first time, but for people like me who are going to be like, oh my gosh, I remember this place.
Yeah. No, I think that's, it's been long enough, I think, that if they were rehashing things from maybe the 2016 remake, and who knows, maybe they are. I didn't read the article, but if it's stuff from like the PlayStation 3 days, it's been a while. So I think that's cool. And I'm looking forward to this game. It looks beautiful. We will learn more. I think they said there's going to be 15 minutes of gameplay shown at the State of Play on Thursday. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, that's a lot of gameplay. And you know what? PlayStation fans love it, and I think a lot of other people love it too. So
yeah. So very, very cool. Look forward to that. I know I definitely am, and sounds like you are too. And moving on from that, last week we got a little tidbit of news that Respawn, who, by the way, like out of nowhere, won an Academy Award. I don't know if you
I saw that. Yeah.
But they are working apparently on a new IP. So they their studio head, Vince Zampella, retweeted a job posting that confirms that, I mean, it verbatim says a new IP is what they're hiring for. So this is not like a rumor. This is a fact. And the job posting said that they are, quote, looking for a software engineer to join a compact incubation team currently developing a brand new IP. And then another developer there, Stephen Ka-hen Wong, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, also retweeted another little blurb that says, want to get in early and help build a new IP from scratch. We're a team of 5 right now looking for our 6th, a coder. So very early days for this project, but you know, in addition to Jedi Fallen Order, Apex Legends, whatever they got going for Titanfall, if anything, there's a lot going on over at Respawn.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think Respawn is proving they are a very, very quality studio. I think anybody with eyeballs and not a negative sentiment towards them will admit that. So I'm excited. Again, like Josh said, so early. I doubt we see anything about this for a long time.
Yeah, and just a little to tack something else onto this. Over the weekend, I think it was the weekend, I saw a tweet from Jason De Haras, who's the director on Jedi Fallen Order. He retweeted this tweet that people were tweeting out, like, what are your 4 most anticipated games? And the 4 that he tweeted out was, I can't remember what the one that he showed, but 3 of them were just black squares, and they said game, and on the square it said game that I cannot talk about yet, for 3 of them. And that tweet was deleted like a couple hours later. So just something interesting to throw into the rumor mill there.
Wow. Yeah. Anyone who worked on Jedi Fallen Order, I'm very interested to see what they're working on next.
Yep. Yeah, same here. So moving on from that, now we normally talk on this show about games coming out, and that's kind of our focus, but Xbox and PlayStation did release their sales figures for the quarter. I think this is for the first quarter of the year. And it's just kind of interesting to look at with the new launch of consoles, or the launch of new consoles, rather. We thought this would be fun to go over. So Microsoft is killing it. They reported that their gaming revenue was $3.53 billion with a B for the first quarter of 2021, which is up 50% year over year, which I believe means, you know, if you go back for the quarter of 2020, that's 50% more than they made last year. Content and services revenue for Xbox is up 34%, and game sales and, or rather hardware revenue is up 232%. So just huge numbers for Xbox. And according to analyst Daniel Ahmad, Microsoft's gaming revenue for the past 12 months reached about $15 billion, which is up from $10.3 billion for the 12 months prior to that. However, Microsoft did not reveal any specific console sale numbers. So we don't know how many Xboxes they sold or how many Game Pass subscriptions they sold, even though it did come out recently that their Game Pass subscriptions had surpassed 23 million. So lots of numbers in there. Hopefully that wasn't too much to take in. But Jackson, what are your thoughts on that for Microsoft?
It's great. We talk a lot about, you know, Microsoft and Sony and what they're doing against each other in the competition and all that. But I think it's better for gaming in general to see these companies succeed. And that's what Microsoft is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on from that, but in the kind of the same realm, PlayStation had its, quote, best year ever, selling 7.8 million units sold, or units of the PS5. And I believe that's not just for the quarter. That's since the console launched. And that surpasses PS4's sales in that time frame. And I think it is, you know, their fastest selling console. I think that it's not in this document here, but I think that was something that they said. Anyway, in Q4 of 2020, they reported $6.24 billion in revenue, which is up 32.6% from last year. And actually, if I compare that to Microsoft's numbers, I don't know if there's a direct comparison. 6 point. Well,
I think it's double.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at it right, almost double.
Yeah. But anyways, both PlayStation and Microsoft are crushing it right now. And PlayStation, that they're happy to release their actual unit sold number, which is again 7.8 million units sold. Where Microsoft keeps that number close to the chest. But I think with Game Pass, it's a totally different game for Microsoft.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's probably one reason. I think they probably knew. So Microsoft released their numbers before PlayStation. So I think Microsoft knew that they didn't want to go ahead and put out their numbers because PlayStation would. So that's one thing. But also, I didn't put it in the doc. The Daniel Ahmad number there, the 15 billion, I believe I read in the same article I linked for the PlayStation information that their revenue reached 25 billion. Ooh. So just to get an idea of just how big 15 and 25 seem far apart, but those are just massive numbers. I mean, gaming is growing at such an amazing pace.
Yeah, it is. And I remember this was way back in the day, like we're talking years and years ago. I remember looking at, there was an article comparing like how much the film industry made versus how much the gaming industry made. And the gaming industry was kind of overtaking the film industry. And I bet if you look at how much, especially in 2020, I mean, what a terrible year for the movie industry, but
right.
Like just as to draw a comparison, if you look at, I don't know off the top of my head, but I would hazard a guess that if you look at how much the film industry makes typically on a year, it might not even be the 25 billion that Sony made alone. I mean, it's crazy how much money games make these days.
Really? Yeah. It's the price of entry, $60, man. It's pretty expensive to spend on one product, but you get your money's worth in a lot of cases.
Yeah. I agree. I think so too. So anyways, congrats to both PlayStation and Xbox. Hopefully they both continue to just do very well, and we'll follow this as maybe as the quarters move on. So from that, we got some last night out of nowhere. I opened my Twitter feed right before I went to bed, and I saw a headline that had The Last of Us Part 3 in it. So I had to click that. And apparently there's this story about Neil Druckmann, who, he's the director of The Last of Us, and he's pretty much the guy calling the shots over at Naughty Dog these days. And he was on a podcast called Script Apart. And he said that, quote, I don't know how, let me make sure. Well, basically he said that The Last of Us Part 3 is written, or at least there's a story outline written. I don't know, probably not a script. And that they don't know if they're going to produce it or not. They're not producing it yet. But his direct quote that I found interesting was, quote, I don't know how much I want to reveal. Co-writer Haley Gross and I did write an outline for a story that we're not making, but I hope one day can see the light of day that explores a little bit what happens after this game. We'll see, he said, referring to The Last of Us Part 2. So do you want Last of Us Part 3, Jackson?
Part 2 worked for me, so that kind of makes me think that Part 3 would be fine. I would like to see more of those characters in that story. I know a very polarizing game. A lot of people don't want this, but I'd play it, honestly, if it's at the quality that 1 and 2 were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I would play it. It would sell like crazy. I do think anything Naughty Dog puts their stamp on will sell very well, but The Last of Us probably tops that list. But yeah, the story for me, it wasn't the story I wanted, so I would love to see kind of a redemption arc for Ellie if there is a Last of Us Part 3. I would also love to see more of Dina. I fell in love with her as a character. I thought she was just great.
Yeah, me too.
So, whatever they do, I would hope that it features Ellie and Dina, but as they showed us with Last of Us Part 2, whatever they're thinking, it's probably not what any of us are thinking.
Not to spoil anything, not like this is going to spoil anyone, but would they kill Ellie? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. It's all bets are off when it comes to Neil Druckmann and what he wants to do with his stories. So, but maybe we'll see The Last of Us Part 3 in 2030.
We'll see.
Yeah. And so the last story that we want to talk about is I don't think this has been officially confirmed that this or maybe it has. It seems like maybe you added something into
yes,
this.
I did.
Doc.
Sorry, that was a bit of a shock. Yeah, it was confirmed.
No problem. So anyways, Resident Evil Village's PvP mode, which is called Reverse, has been delayed. So this is not the Mercenaries mode that is in the game. This is totally separate, where this is the multiplayer mode that they were talking about a while back. Anyways, according to GameSpot, an email to Resident Evil ambassadors stated that Reverse is no longer slated for a May 7th release, and apparently this was confirmed by Eurogamer. It's now slated for a summer 2021 release. So if you're getting Resident Evil Village and you were looking forward to playing with friends, unfortunately you have to wait a bit longer.
Yeah, this this probably doesn't add a ton of the conversation, to be honest, but it looks a little rough to me. I don't know if you thought that, Josh. I don't really know who this is for except for those big fans. So I just hope it's good when it comes out.
Yeah, it just seemed like it seemed rushed, I guess, to me. You know, that they were just kind of putting all these different elements from all these past Resident Evils and throwing them into this mode that would get people excited because it had all these old things from old games. That's what it kind of looked like to me, but I was not the target audience for this.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither.
So anyways, that is all the news of the week. That was a lot, actually. I thought it was going to be a slow week, but we actually got a lot of news. We are now going to take our first break, and when we get back, we're going to get into our deep dive discussion, listing out all the games that have been unfortunately delayed, but that we still have to look forward to in 2021 and beyond. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are now going to get into our deep dive discussion. This week, we want to just go through all of the games that have been delayed. There's been a lot of them with, obviously, COVID has been a big factor here, and it's kind of hard to keep track of what's coming out this year, what's coming out next year, what has gotten delayed, what hasn't. So we'll start with the games that have been delayed but have already been released, or in one case is about to get released. So Outriders got delayed. That came out in April. And then Returnal was initially scheduled, I think, for either February or March, but now that comes out April 30th, which should literally be the day after we post this podcast. Can't wait for Returnal. You going to pick up Returnal, Jackson?
Absolutely, especially after the reception.
Yeah, the reviews. I think reviews post tonight. I think I read the embargo is early Thursday morning, so we should know exactly how good this game is, at least according to reviews, very soon. Anyways, now we're going to get into the games that were delayed out of 2021. So games that were scheduled to come out this year, but unfortunately, now we have to wait quite a bit longer. So the first one is Hogwarts Legacy. I don't think any of these games ever had specific release dates, but they're now definitely slated for 2022. Hogwarts Legacy, Gran Turismo 7, Lord of the Rings Gollum, and Gotham Knights. Which of these games were you most excited for, Jackson?
I think it has to be Hogwarts Legacy for me. Gotham Knights is interesting. I'm a little skeptical. I still see it as a Marvel. It could be a potential Marvel's Avengers situation. I certainly hope it's not. But yeah, those are my two.
Yeah, I have to say I'm really hyped about Gollum because that is kind of, it seems to me, being pitched as a stealth game, which is, as anybody who listens to this podcast knows, that's right up my alley. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan. In fact, I'm not a fan of that series at all. But if you get to sneak around as Gollum, that could be cool. And yeah, Hogwarts Legacy looks great. Gotham Knights, I'm with you. That could be, there's a lot of questions around that. But anyways, all of those games are delayed until 2022. I don't think there's anything in here that I would say could get delayed further. I mean, you never know, but I'm confident that these will release at some point in the next 18 months.
I think so too. There's always the possibility, but I'm pretty confident.
Yeah. So, and again, this is kind of our list that we threw together, not too quickly, but if there's anything we missed in terms of games that have been delayed that you're looking forward to, definitely drop it in the comments. Let us know. We may have missed one or two, but hopefully we got all the big ones. So from here, there are a lot of games that have been delayed from 2021 to 2021. So just sometime later in the year. And a lot of these actually have dates. The first one is the AC Valhalla, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC, which you're going to be getting into. Am I right, Jackson?
Yes, Wrath of the Druids was supposed to come out, I think, yesterday from the time we're recording, but it got delayed to the 13th of May. I will be checking it out. Yeah,
but as you mentioned last week, comes out about almost one day before Mass Effect.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough picking between those two.
Yeah, and so kind of staying on that DLC theme. I don't know if I would call this DLC, but it is kind of like an add-on. What we mentioned earlier, Resident Evil Reverse. Again, this is I don't really know. We didn't explain in the previous segment exactly what this is, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. But it looks like some sort of arena-style multiplayer competitive experience. But there's tons of different characters from different Resident Evil games, tons of different enemies from different Resident Evil games, and tons of different settings from different Resident Evil games, all mashed up into this multiplayer competitive PvP experience. This comes out now summer 2021. And next is a game that I think we're probably both looking forward to a bit more, Kena Bridge of Spirits. This now comes out August 24th. And initially, I think this was pitched as like a February release.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out pretty close after the launch of the PS5. So it was a bit surprising. This is a pretty deep delay, all things considered. It's 6 months.
Yeah, but this game looks amazing. If you want to check it out, I have a video on my channel where I go into some of the more interesting aspects of Kena Bridge of Spirits. So definitely check that out if this game is something you're looking forward to. Again, August 24th. This is kind of feeling that like action adventure, maybe even Zelda-esque kind of itch. It's scratching that itch, I think, for a lot of people on PlayStation 5.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those landmark sort of like Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, Miles Morales sort of titles for the system, I think.
Yeah. One thing a lot of people may not know is this is actually the studio's very first game they've ever created. They're initially an animation studio, and they've never made a video game. So really impressive stuff.
That makes sense by looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Zelda, not to harp too long on this game, but they also made a fan film called Majora's Mask Terrible Fate, I think it's called. And it's beautiful. And it's all about like it kind of imagines the intro section of Majora's Mask, if you remember what that was like. So they're clearly Zelda fans, and I think it's fair to expect some Zelda influences in this game.
That's awesome. That can only be a good thing, really.
Yeah, very cool. So moving on from that, Deathloop is coming out on September 14th. Now, this was supposed to, I think the initial date was May. So I'm bummed that we won't get to play this in May, but I hope that it is a great game. I also posted a preview to my channel with tons of information about Deathloop. I think that Arcane, as you've mentioned a number of times on the channel, Jackson, Arcane is a studio that has earned the trust of the gamers who love their games.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's without question. They have a very strong little fan base. It's just a matter of whether they can expand it. So this game, actually, I think technically you could say it's been delayed twice.
Yep.
It was supposed to come out Q2, or no, I'm actually trying to read back here. It's supposed to be
have initially been a Q4 last year. I think they might have even said holiday 2020 when they first announced it.
Yeah,
PlayStation 5.
You're right. So this has really seen some big delays, but makes sense given everything that happened last year.
Yeah. One question I have for you on Deathloop: does it turn you off that it is a roguelite-ish type game?
I'm actually more interested in it because of that. I think it's more unique to mash together immersive sim with that format. I think I've played enough immersive sims to want something slightly different, personally.
Yeah. So look forward to Deathloop on September 14th. Moving into October 12th, we get Back for Blood. So if you're looking for, this is probably one of the bigger or biggest maybe multiplayer PvP games coming out this year. This is the spiritual sequel to Left 4 Dead. So if that's something you're into and you like zombies, are you going to be playing this, Jackson?
Yes, definitely. I will be checking this out.
Yeah, this is one I might dip my toes into the multiplayer PvP realm just to see. I'm very curious about this game. I thought the gameplay looked fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, so that's October 12th. Then we get to what you could argue is the biggest game of the year, I think, Halo Infinite. Now, this I think they have said is a November release, which makes sense because I'm not sure if it's the 20th or 25th anniversary of Halo, probably 20th. Anyways, it's a big anniversary for Halo, and it's in November, so look forward to that. I just hope this game is good.
Me too.
Just blanket statement. Just I hope it's good. I hope it. I don't think that Xbox's success hinges as much as we thought on Halo now, but I do think that it's going to make a huge difference for them and Game Pass if this game can make fans happy.
Totally. And we have to expect it's going to be a Game Pass Day 1 game because it would be dumb if they didn't do that. And at the same time, I hope they show it at E3. I have very big doubts, but I hope.
Man, I hadn't even thought about that, but I'd be surprised if they didn't show it at E3. I think people would be very worried, but we'll see. That's a good point.
Yeah, you're right. We'll see.
Yeah. So moving on from that, the last 2 games on this list are 2 Ubisoft games. The first one you might have even forgotten about, Riders Republic. This is that kind of extreme sports multiplayer. It seemed like a had this downhill theme, but I don't think it did. It's like if Tony Hawk was multiplayer and had multiple sports. It actually looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome for people that are into that, and it has this almost MMO type atmosphere. Unless I was misreading that, it does feel like just an open kind of crew like atmosphere.
Yeah. And this one we don't have a date for. This was initially, I think, scheduled for like February, but they just said it's now delayed. I get the impression that Ubisoft they have the pressure of their shareholders, and so they're like, yeah, we're bringing this game out in this year, so don't worry, we're going to be making money during this period of time. But internally, they're like, yeah, there's no way in hell we're bringing this game out in that time frame.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what happened with Riders Republic, because now it's just like, who knows when this game's coming out.
And that's what happened with Skull and Bones, another game we haven't heard anything about that game in a couple of years.
Yeah, that one I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see it at E3. It's still in development, so not that it's not one that I'm particularly looking forward to, but that we didn't have it on this list because the last time that got delayed, I think that was last year or maybe even the year before. It's been a long road for that game. But the last game on this list is a huge one, Far Cry 6. And this is a game I would absolutely expect to see at E3.
Yeah, we're going to see this at E3 without a doubt. And this is a huge game, I think. I think this is a really big opportunity for Ubisoft to, not that 4 and 5 weren't worthy, but sales-wise, they just weren't. And they didn't capture kind of the audience that 3 did. So returning to a tropical setting, getting, Gus Fring as your villain, it's a great prospect.
Yeah, and for the first time, it's going to have like a major city. Like that's one of the things that is going to mix things up. I hope that they mix it up gameplay-wise, not just setting-wise, but it is going to be cool to see, how the urban setting changes things for Far Cry.
I know. I'm trying to think of like a fusion. Maybe it's going to feel like Dying Light, but obviously not zombies. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll see. So that, again, we have no release date for that. I'm expecting that's going to be maybe Ubisoft's big holiday release. So maybe sometime in Q4. We'll see. Anyways, those are the games that we found that we thought we'd bring to your attention. Once again, the games that have been delayed. If there's anything that's been delayed that we missed that you're looking forward to, let us know in the comments. And with that, we are going to take our second break. When we get back, we're going to dig into our mailbag. We'll be right back. And we're back. We are now going to dig into our mailbag and read one of our reader questions. If you want to have your question read on the show, you can write into preloadedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can hit either of us up on Twitter. I am at QuestModeGames. Jackson, where are you?
I am at jayvee on YT.
So at either one of us with a question for the show, or hit us up at the email address. This week, Dustin, you hit me up on Twitter, so thanks for the question. And you asked a question about Returnal. With the sudden critical success of Returnal, do you think future new IPs are going to be accepted faster than Returnal originally was? Most people were on the fence, me included, and the first look previews came out and blew minds. You can pre-order Returnal on Amazon. You can't pre-order Returnal on Amazon without it being pushed back until July. So what you're meaning there is if you purchase the physical copy, you have to wait. It's basically sold out, which is crazy. Anyways, thanks. You guys are excellent. As always, cheers, Dustin. So this is an interesting question because, Returnal did not really light a lot of people's fire initially. I have always been hyped about it, but for whatever reason, some people may not have been as hyped. What do you think, Jackson? Do you think that this changes things for games like this?
I think it really depends, which is an annoying answer, unfortunately. And thank you, Dustin, for the question here. I think it depends. I think it depends on how much Sony or Xbox or whoever's putting the games out or publishing them is willing to support them with marketing dollars and time and focus. They are really pushing Returnal, which I think is exactly what a smaller kind of game like this needs. And I do recognize this is a fully priced game, so it's not technically smaller. And in terms of length, it's probably not technically smaller either, but it's a little more niche. So I think when you're trying to sell something on that's a little more high concept, that's not for a casual audience, you need to back it big time. So I think it depends, because like you look at Days Gone, right? Days Gone didn't sell very well. We've been talking about that game, and that's a new IP, and that's a little more low concept. That's a little more easy to grasp what was going on there. So something about this, I think, is just interesting for people.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming off of a drought, for one. There just hasn't been a lot of new stuff to play other than maybe Outriders. This is a next-gen exclusive, so I think that's captured a lot of people's interest. But then, yeah, when the previews came out and they almost read like reviews, people were so, I don't know what the embargo was for Returnal, but apparently they didn't prevent people from saying this game is awesome, because that's basically what people were saying. And I think that makes a big difference. However, to answer your question, Dustin, will this change things for games like this moving forward? I think it's all going to depend on sales. It does appear that this game is going to sell well, but it's kind of in a unique position because it's selling for a console that we just saw about 8 million PlayStation 5s out in the wild. So this game's probably not going to sell. I mean, heck, if it sells 1 million copies, that's like a runaway hit. And then, yeah, maybe this will change things for games like this moving forward. But on the heels of all the news that came out a couple weeks ago about Sony potentially not supporting more niche titles, like you put it, Jackson, I sure hope that they look at Returnal and say, you know what, these quote-unquote smaller games from smaller developers can really make a big difference and pull in some new eyeballs for PlayStation.
Absolutely. And like you said, if this game sells 1 million copies and there's only 8 million out there, I mean, that has to be seen as a smash hit for a new IP from, quote, a smaller studio. So, it depends, all on sales.
Yeah, and the last thing before moving on, I just think that a game like Returnal has potential to have a really long tail. Like anybody who buys, if the game is really that good, anybody who buys a PlayStation 5 in the next year or 18 months will probably get recommended like, oh, if you like this type of game, Returnal's an amazing exclusive for the system. So, hopefully it'll sell well long into the future.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right. So thanks again, Dustin, for the question. That is going to do it for this week. Before we sign off, Jackson, did you have anything you want to talk about that's going to be on your channel?
So since I'm going to be out of town, not a ton of content for me, but I do have that AC Odyssey in 2021, epiphany sort of video you guys should totally check out.
Nice. And I am going to be posting, I'm aiming for this Saturday. Saturday morning is when I'm hoping to post a preview for Resident Evil Village. It's not going to be my typical, or it's not going to be one of my ultimate previews. I just didn't have enough time to put one of those together, but I did find some interesting stuff out there, some interesting tidbits about Resident Evil Village. So if you want to maybe learn a thing or two that you may not know yet about that game, tune into Quest Mode on YouTube this Saturday and check that out. So with that, we are all set for the week. Thanks again for listening through the end of the show. We will see you next week.
Bye, guys.